Okay, everybody, well, welcome back. We are going to work on part 2 of the 3-part series with regards to the 45-degree elbow that you seen me on the previous video. I built the left and the right-hand cheek. That went with this 45-degree elbow, square heel, square throat, or a version of that anyway. Today in the 2-part series, part 2 here, we are going to build the heel, and we're going to connect it with the throat because the throat will be, again, too short to go through the lock form machine all by itself. So let's get started with that. Again, the project here, we've got our paragraph down here that covers the heel pattern that goes along with those for the write-up. There's the cheek, and here is our throat dimensions as well as our heel dimensions on the next page. So we'll pop it out and lay them right next to one another. Again, because the throat is too short to go through the lock form machine, we're going to fabricate this piece and connect it right to the heel. Throat and heel all as one. So first things first, I got to look at my dimension and I got to determine how tall or how high this fitting has to be. So it looks like our final dimension of the ductwork is going to be an 8-inch duct, and then on this plan we've got 7/8 drawn on each end for the take-up of our lock former in the shop. Again, most are a 1-inch lock form, but this one's a 7/8. Same deal on the throat. We've got a 7/8 diagram drawn here, even though it's not the scale. Both sides are 7/8 in width, and then we got to determine the width of our pattern to fit with an 8-inch duct, again, as far as our height there. So let's get into it. So 8 and 7/8 and 7/8 is going to give me 9 3/4 inches. So I found a piece prior to this over in the bin that measured that 9 3/4 inches, and to a random width. I haven't cut that length yet. 9 3/4 is my width. My length is to be determined at this point in time. The next thing I need to do is take my scribe here, and I'm going to mark the 7/8 down both sides all the way. So we'll find that mark. You can put a scribe on there where the take-up of the lock former is going to be. After I've got that completed, I've got to determine some dimensions. Now this one's a little bit different. It's been a while. If you've been following along with the projects, it's been a while since we've had to make a throat that had a bend in it, which means we're going to have a notch at that bend that we've got to take up. With the radius throats, we don't have that center notch on either end to take care of, but this one we do, so we can't forget that. So let's figure out our dimensions. I'm going to start with the heel on the left, which is my external dimension here, and then I'm going to work into the throat and connect it right alongside of each other. So let's figure out the dimension of our heel right now. So take one of your parts. They should be identical, so it shouldn't really matter. We'll set the other one aside, and I'm going to measure my heel distance. On this part, it appears that it came out about 5 7/8. So I'm going to transfer that mark over to my sheet. 5 7/8, and I'll give it a little crow's foot. So when I go to square it here, set that square out there. I know exactly which edge of the line via the crow's foot that I'm using. So this is going to be this distance right here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to figure out the remaining distance from that point. So it appears if I measure the other direction, looks like that one came out about 5 7/8 also, maybe just a skosh under. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can set your tape measure on the 12 and pull it out to your 5 7/8. Simple math that way, as long as you don't move. Mark it. Or you can add the two together and figure out that it's 11 3/4. Total distance, again, I left the crow's foot, and I'm going to square that distance as well on the part. So now I've got the distance for my heel. Part A with the bend should bring me right up to part B over here, and then we will finalize that in a little bit. And then I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to figure out my internal dimension off the part and put those marks on the sheet too. Might be a good idea for you, so you don't mess up the marks, is put like a little indicator here where your cut is going to be from the transition from the heel to the throat all the way across, so you're not cutting all of a sudden on the wrong mark. Okay, the next thing then is figuring out our throat dimensions. That one appears to be 2.5 inches, and this one also appears to be 2.5 inches. So let's measure that on and beyond there. So we need our first mark at 2.5 inches, and then add them together. Should sit me at 5 inches. And you can always check it, just slide your tape measure down and make sure things work out. And then we'll finish by squaring them across as well. Trying to use as much surface area of the sheet with the square as you can should help you keep everything square. So what I'm looking at here, again from left to right, I've got the panel A, the two sides there, and then there's going to be a cut mark where these two are going to separate, and then I go to my inside throat, the two sides there, and then there's my other cut mark, and I can cut this one right now on the shear back there. So let's do that. Here we are at the shear. We're just going to slide it in, and we're going to cut our part to length. We're going to keep the heel section and the throat tied together. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finalize the length of the two pieces combined. So slide it in, find my mark, line it up just right in there, and then keeping your fingers back, cut it off. Okay, and we'll go back to the bench and finish the notch. Okay, back here at the bench, we're ready to start with the notching procedure. The ends are just like they've always been with the radiuses, except that being these are, again, bent in the center, we're also going to have to either slit or notch, whatever your preference is on those. So let's go ahead and notch it at our 7/8 marks where the lock former is taken into account on the exposed end of the heel. We'll turn it around and we'll grab the exposed end of the throat. Just a straight 3/4 inch notcher up to that point. Then we'll we'll lay it out, and I'll come back to the other ones in just a second. But we're going to finish the connected end here. We'll get the notches set up so we can cut these out of here on each end. So I do that with a 10 snips by taking my scribe, just marking them from a cutout sliver or whatever. And then we'll do the same on the other side. We'll mark them. Them laid out. And with my 10 snips, we'll cut them out. Now if you looked at it, if I was to cut that in half, that should pretty well come out to this section right here, and again we'll cut the other tail off each end. Same down here at this end, the other half of it should be the remaining section here, so we'll cut that down. We'll do the same on the other side. Finish out the center. And then again, we'll finish out those ends. Okay, now had this been a rolled piece, we'd be done. We'd be ready to run it through the lock former and, you know, lock form it, slice the pieces through, and then roll it, and it'd be ready to go. But being this is a bent heel and throat, what we have to do is we've got to place the notches where they belong. So at this point, you can either take your tin snips and either one slit it, like this here. You can just go straight in there and slit it, the depth of it, or if you like on the other side, it's your preference. You can use the, how about I do the, yeah, I'll do one on one and one on the other so you can see them both on each one. And then notch it. We'll do the same on the throat. I'll do a notch on one side and a slit on the other and see how things turn out. Okay, now at this point I can, after I run it through my lock form, I'll be able to make this bend without this half of getting in the road of this one when we go to lock that lock form down. Same up here with the heel. When we go to bend them, we'll be able to make that corner and it shouldn't get in the road. So let's give it a shot, and we're ready to run it through the lock form. Up here at the lock form machine, just like we've done the last how many, tight against the fence, and then send it through, lines up. Line them up. Now, it was very important there that I didn't cut on the wrong mark. I've had people do that. They cut the wrong mark here. So that's where those Sharpie marks helped to determine where your throat stops and your heel begins. Okay, let's go check it out. All right, so just a minute ago you seen when I put the notches in there via the slit or whatever we chose, I did one on one side and one on the other side. This is what it looks like after it's complete. You'll notice the notches here. This was this tool when we cut it in, and the other side we just did a slit. So either will work for the project and they should be just fine. But let's go ahead and get them ready to put the bends in them to make them match to the part. This one here, you've got to figure out which direction you got to bend it, right? So is it lines up, lines down? Well, it's got to be lines up here, and then we'll bend that to the contour of the mark. Same with the other side. We got to figure out, okay, is it lines up, lines down? So you got to match it up to your part, and this one is lines down. So lines down and lines up. So let's take it over to the bending brake, and let's match the contour. We'll start with the heel first. Lines up. Set it on our marks here. Make sure we get that lined up just how it needs to be. And then we're going to pull that up till it hits a 45 degree. Something about that area there. The next thing we need to do then is we got to bend the inside throat. So again, figuring out which direction it has to be. This one's going to be lines down. We'll set it back in there on our marks. Get that all lined up. And we'll pull that one up to a 45 degree as well. Okay. And that will conclude the throat and the heel for the 45-degree elbow. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little video here on this. Hopefully it helps you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Later.